AITA for walking out after my girlfriend mocked me at our anniversary dinner? I'm Michael, 36, and until recently, I thought Alyssa was the person I was going to marry. We'd been together long enough that her favorite coffee order was saved in my phone. Her dog still ran to me before anyone else, and half the mugs in my kitchen were ones she bought because she said mine looked too depressing for guests. I live a pretty steady life. Nothing flashy. Nothing worth turning into a brag. I pay my bills, I keep my promises, and when I love someone, I try to make their life easier without needing a standing ovation for it. Alyssa used to tell me that was one of the things she loved about me. You're the first person who makes life feel like it isn't always on fire, she said once, sitting barefoot on my kitchen counter at midnight while I made grilled cheese because she had forgotten to eat dinner. Back then, that was us. Quiet, comfortable, real. We had late-night grocery runs where she'd toss snacks into the cart and pretend not to notice me putting them back when she grabbed the wrong flavor. We had inside jokes about her dog, Benny, who acted like I was his long-lost father every time I walked in. We had Sunday mornings where she'd drink coffee on my couch and criticize the mugs she had bought me the year before. These are ugly too, she'd say. You picked them. I know. That makes it worse. I love that version of us. I loved her sharp humor when it wasn't aimed at hurting people. I loved how she cried during commercials with dogs in them, and then denied it like I didn't see her wiping her face with her sleeve. I loved that she could walk into a room and make everyone feel like something interesting was about to happen. For a long time, I thought we balanced each other. She brought excitement. I brought calm. She pulled me out of my routines. I kept her from spinning out when life got too loud. Then, slowly, the things she used to admire started becoming the things she mocked. It didn't happen all at once. That's probably why I let it go on longer than I should have. At first, it was small comments. We'd be out to dinner, and she'd look around the restaurant and say, "This place is cute, but not proposal energy." I would laugh because I thought she was joking. Then one of her friends got engaged, and Alyssa stared at the ring photo on Instagram for a long time. I was on the other end of the couch, folding a blanket. "At least he made it look like he tried," she said. I looked over. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Just look at it. That's a man who's excited to claim his woman." I said, "I don't want to claim you. I want to build with you." She rolled her eyes, but she smiled too, so I thought we were fine. That is such a Michael answer. Another time, I offered to cook instead of going out because she had been complaining all week about money. I had gotten nice steaks, the kind I don't usually buy, and I cleaned up the patio so we could eat outside. She walked in, saw the table set, and said, "This is sweet." Very old man behavior, but sweet. I remember standing there with the tongs in my hand, trying to decide if I was being too sensitive. That became a pattern with Alyssa. If I reacted, I was sensitive. If I didn't, the comments got a little sharper. "You're responsible," she said once. "But sometimes I want to feel spoiled, not budgeted." "Spoiled how?" I asked. "I don't know. Like you actually want to impress me. Like I'm worth making a big deal over." That one stuck with me because I thought I had been making a big deal over her in all the ways that counted. When her car needed work and she was short because of another bill, I covered half after she promised to pay me back. When Benny had an emergency vet visit, I paid the difference because she was crying in the waiting room and couldn't think straight. When she flew out for her cousin's shower and the ticket was more than she expected, I bought it and told her we could figure it out later. I didn't hold those things over her. I didn't screenshot every Venmo note like I was building a case. I did it because we were supposed to be partners. And yes, I was planning to propose. I had been planning it for months. Not in a giant, fireworks over the ocean way. That was never us, at least not the us I thought we were. I had reserved a private room at a small restaurant she loved, the kind with low lights and a patio she always said felt secret. I booked a photographer for 30 minutes after dinner, just enough to catch the actual moment and a few photos afterward. I had been working with a jeweler on a ring based on a style Alyssa had saved years ago, before every engagement post became a public ranking system. It wasn't cheap. It also wasn't ridiculous. It was meaningful, personal, and real. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted the moment to belong to us before it belonged to everyone else. That was the part Alyssa never understood, or maybe stopped wanting to understand. Her group chat with her friends started buzzing constantly around then. I didn't read her messages. I didn't ask to, but I noticed the way her mood changed after every engagement announcement. She'd be normal, Then her phone would light up, and suddenly she was staring at me like I had failed an exam I didn't know I was taking. Her closest friends were Jenna and Brooke. Jenna was the loud one, the kind of person who called cruelty honesty and thought every relationship could be judged by how jealous it made other people. Brooke was quieter. She'd been around long enough that we were friendly. Not close, but friendly enough that she would ask me about Benny or send me a picture if Alyssa's dog did something stupid while I wasn't there. Jenna loved comparing men. At a barbecue, after another woman in the group got engaged, Jenna held court by the kitchen island with a glass of wine in one hand and her phone in the other. "I'm sorry," she said, zooming in on the ring photo, "but this is what effort looks like." Alyssa laughed. "Don't start." "No, seriously. Some men say they love you. Other men make sure the whole world knows they do." I was standing close enough to hear, rinsing a plate in the sink. Alyssa looked at me and gave a little smile that wasn't really a smile. "Michael shows love by researching parking," she said. Everyone laughed. I gave a small shrug, because what was I supposed to do? Start an argument in someone's kitchen over parking? I told myself she was just playing along. Then her family started making comments too. Her mom, Denise, had always been warm to me. She wasn't a bad person. She was protective, and she loved Alyssa hard enough to believe her first and ask questions later. Around that time, though, Denise began giving me these concerned little looks, like she was watching me disappoint her daughter in slow motion. One Sunday, while Alyssa was in the other room, Denise said, "You two have been together a long time, Michael." "I know," I said. "I take that seriously." She nodded, but her face didn't relax. "We're just worried. Alyssa isn't getting younger." I didn't like the phrase, but I kept my voice calm. "I'm not wasting her time." "I hope not. She acts like she doesn't care, but she does." I almost told Denise everything right then. The reservation, the ring, the photographer, the dates circled on my calendar. But I didn't, because I still wanted the proposal to be a surprise, and because I thought Alyssa and I were allowed to have something private. Her older sister, Marissa, was less subtle. At dinner one night, Marissa said, "At this rate, Alyssa will need a retirement party before an engagement party." Alyssa laughed too loudly. I looked at her. "You want to help me out here?" She put her hand on my arm. "She's joking," Marissa said. "Mostly." That was how it kept happening. Jokes. Mostly jokes. Harmless jokes. Until somehow I was always the punchline. And if I didn't laugh, I was the problem. Our anniversary dinner was supposed to be simple. Alyssa framed it that way. She said a few friends wanted to celebrate with us, and her mom and sister might stop by for drinks. I wasn't thrilled about turning our anniversary into a group event, but I didn't push back. I thought maybe she wanted the attention because she had been feeling insecure. I told myself I could give her that. Looking back, the whole thing felt staged from the minute I sat down. Jenna was already there with her husband Nate, along with Brooke and two other friends. Denise and Marissa came in about 20 minutes later. Alyssa wore the black dress she saved for occasions when she wanted people to notice. She looked beautiful. I remember that very clearly, because part of me was still thinking about the ring sitting unfinished at the jeweler and the proposal date coming up in a few weeks. The table was loud. Not bad loud at first. Just normal dinner loud. Jenna made jokes. Nate told a story about messing up a home repair. Denise asked about Benny. I relaxed a little. Then Nate leaned back in his chair and said, "So, do we need to clear our calendars for a proposal, or are we safe until next decade?" The table laughed. I smiled a little because I had gotten used to that question. Before I could answer, Jenna said, "Don't pressure him. Love is love, but a coupon code proposal is where I draw the line." Alyssa put her hand over her mouth like she was trying not to laugh. I looked at her. Just looked. She knew I hated being teased about money, not because I was ashamed of being careful, but because it made everything I quietly did for her look like nothing. Alyssa took a sip of her drink and said, "Michael plans romance like he's applying for a rebate." The table exploded. Jenna slapped the table. Nate actually leaned forward like he needed air. Marissa laughed into her napkin. Even Denise smiled at first, then looked at me and seemed unsure. I waited. I gave Alyssa a chance to fix it. A small one. A look. A second. Anything. Instead, she kept going. "I mean, I love him," she said, grinning toward the group. "But he's definitely more safe choice than spark choice." That was when the laughter changed for me. It stopped sounding like people laughing around me and and started sounding like people laughing at something I had been too slow to see. Jenna said, budget boyfriend energy. Nate added, Alyssa deserves someone who doesn't need a coupon code to say I love you. Alyssa laughed again. Not awkwardly. Not like she had lost control of the joke. Like it had landed exactly where she wanted. I put my napkin down. Alyssa noticed. Oh, come on. It's a joke. I asked, are you done? The table got quieter. Not silent, but quieter. She blinked at me. Seriously? I pulled out my wallet, counted enough cash for my meal and tip, and placed it under my glass. Jenna said, Michael, don't be dramatic. I stood up. Alyssa's smile disappeared. Where are you going? I said, enjoy the rest of the night. Then I walked out. I didn't slam anything. I didn't call her names. I didn't make a speech. I walked past the hostess stand, stepped outside, and stood in the cold air for a minute with my hands shaking in my jacket pockets. Not because I wanted to go back. Because I realized I didn't. My phone started buzzing before I got to my car. Alyssa, I can't believe you left like that. Alyssa, everyone was asking what happened. Alyssa, you made me look horrible tonight. I sat in the driver's seat and read that last message twice. Not, I hurt you. Not, I went too far. Not, I'm sorry. You made me look horrible. I typed back, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted that too. Finally, I sent one sentence. Me, you did that before I stood up. She called immediately. I let it ring. Then she sent another text. Alyssa, it was one joke, Michael. Everyone knew I wasn't serious. Me, everyone at that table knew I was the joke. Alyssa, you're punishing me on our anniversary. Me, I need time. That was all I said that night. I didn't sleep much. I sat at my kitchen table with Benny's spare leash still hanging by the door because Alyssa always forgot it at my place. My apartment felt full of her in all the dumb little ways. Her mug in the sink. Her hair tie on the counter. A charger she always claimed wasn't hers even though it fit her phone. Around 2 in the morning, I opened the email from the restaurant where I had reserved the private room for the proposal. I stared at the confirmation until the words blurred. At first, canceling felt too extreme. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she had gotten caught up in the attention. Maybe I should talk to her first. Then I remembered the way she laughed after safe choice. Not nervous. Not regretful. Proud. The next morning, I canceled the private room. There was a deposit I wouldn't get back. I took the loss. Then I emailed the photographer. Hi, I need to cancel the short proposal session scheduled for the 18th. I understand the retainer is non-refundable. Thank you. My hands were steadier by then. After that, I called the jeweler and asked about pausing the final setting. The jeweler, a kind man named Paul, sounded surprised. Are you sure? We were pretty close. I'm sure, I said. There's a fee because the work had already started. I understand. He hesitated. Everything okay? I almost laughed. Not really, but I'd rather stop now. By lunch, I had cancellation emails, a non-refundable photographer retainer, and a jeweler's invoice for work I no longer wanted finished. I wasn't angry enough to destroy anything. I was clear enough to stop building. Then I looked at the rest of our lives. Not in a petty way, in a practical one. There were things I had been paying for because I assumed we were moving toward marriage. A shared trip we had discussed, but never booked formally. A piece of furniture she wanted for our future place, but had put on my card because she said she'd pay me back when her next check came in. A dog emergency payment, half of her car repair, a flight reimbursement. I opened my notes app and made a list. Not insults, not accusations, just facts. Car repair half, dog emergency visit, flight reimbursement, furniture deposit, dinner reservations, proposal deposit, photographer retainer, jeweler fee. For the first time, the list made me feel stupid. Not because I had helped her. I don't regret helping someone I loved. I felt stupid because she had let people call me cheap while knowing exactly what I had covered. Later that afternoon, Brooke texted me. Brooke, can I send you something? I don't want to make it worse, but I think you need context. I stared at the message for a while. Me, what kind of context? Brooke, the group chat. My stomach dropped. Me, send it. A minute later, screenshots started coming through. Brooke had cropped some profile photos, but the names were still there. Jenna, Alyssa, Brooke, 2 other friends. Timestamps from different days. Weeks of them. At first it was exactly what I expected, and somehow still worse to see. Alyssa, he's too comfortable. He thinks because I'm loyal he doesn't have to try. Jenna, men get lazy when you make it too easy. Alyssa, I swear he's hoping I'll settle for something tiny so he can call it sentimental. Jenna, if it's giving office supply budget, say no. There were laughing reactions. Ring emojis. Screenshots of other people's proposals. Comments ranking them like sports scores. Then I saw one from Alyssa that made the room feel like it tilted. Alyssa, if it's not worth posting, I might say no just so he finally understands effort. I read it once. Then again. Then I put the phone down and walked away from it like it had burned me. That was the moment I stopped wondering if I had overreacted at dinner. It wasn't just that Alyssa wanted a nicer ring. It wasn't that she wanted romance. Wanting to feel special is not a crime. Wanting a partner to make effort is not wrong. It was that she had talked about turning the most vulnerable moment of my life into a public punishment if it didn't photograph well enough for her friends. A proposal, to me, was supposed to be a promise. To her, apparently, it was an audition. Brooke sent another message. Brooke, I should have said something sooner. Brooke, I thought she was venting until it started sounding like a plan. Brooke, after last night, I realized she was setting you up. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't mad at Brooke the way I was mad at Alyssa, but I couldn't pretend it didn't hurt that people had watched this build for months. Finally, I wrote, Me, thank you for telling me. She replied, Brooke, I'm sorry. I set the phone down and started making a folder. That sounds cold, but it kept me from doing something stupid. I didn't want to blast Alyssa online. I didn't want to post screenshots and let strangers tear her apart. I didn't want revenge theater. I wanted to stop her from using my silence as permission to rewrite what happened. So I made a folder. Screenshots from Brooke. Reservation confirmations. Cancellation emails. The jeweler's messages. Photographer retainer. Venmo requests and payment notes. Car repair half. Dog emergency visit. Flight reimbursement. Furniture deposit. Nothing dramatic. Nothing edited. Just enough to show the truth if I needed it. Then I texted Alyssa. Me. We need to have a serious conversation. Just us. I'm not discussing this in the friend group. She responded 12 minutes later. Alyssa, finally. Are you ready to apologize for walking out? I almost threw my phone across the room. Instead, I typed. Me, no. I'm ready to talk about why I walked out. Alyssa, you humiliated me in front of everyone. Me. You made me the joke, then got mad that I stopped sitting there. Alyssa, you always do this. You act calm so I look crazy. That one hit me harder than I expected because I had spent years trying to stay calm so things didn't get worse. Somehow, even that had become evidence against me. I didn't answer. By that evening, her family started reaching out. Denise called first. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was soft but pointed. Michael, it's Denise. I don't want to interfere, but Alyssa is devastated. We just want to understand why this became so extreme. Please call me. Then Marissa texted. Marissa, real men don't walk away because of one joke. A few minutes later, Jenna sent one too. Jenna, you proved Alyssa right, honestly. She makes one joke and you cancel the whole relationship? Cancel the whole relationship. I hadn't told anyone I canceled anything. That meant Alyssa was already telling people her version. Maybe she didn't know about the proposal cancellations yet, but she knew I had pulled away, and she was making sure everyone heard Michael abandoned me over a joke before they heard anything else. I called Denise back the next morning. She answered on the first ring. Michael. Hi, Denise. She sighed like she had been holding her breath. Thank you for calling. Alyssa is a mess. I looked at the folder on my kitchen table. I believe that. She said you left her at dinner and haven't really spoken to her. That's true. Can I ask why? You can. But if we're going to talk, we need to talk about more than one joke at dinner. There was a pause. What does that mean? She asked. It means Alyssa hasn't been honest with you about what she's been saying or what I've been doing. Denise got quiet. I said, I'm willing to have one conversation with you, Alyssa, and whoever else she already pulled into this. But I'm not going to sit through another group pile-on. If people want answers, they can listen. Denise said, come over tonight. I almost said no. Every part of me wanted to be done. But I knew if I refused, Alyssa would keep filling the silence. I had spent too long assuming people would know my character without me defending it. That was my mistake. So I went. Denise's house was warm and smelled like coffee. That made the whole thing worse somehow. It felt too normal for what was about to happen. Alyssa was on the couch with a tissue ball in her hand. Her eyes were red, but when she looked at me, I didn't see guilt first. I saw anger. Marissa sat beside her, arms crossed. Jenna was in the armchair near the window, which surprised me. I hadn't agreed to Jenna being there, but I understood immediately why she was. Alyssa wanted backup. Brooke was there too, standing near the dining table like she regretted every decision that had brought her into that room. Denise stood between everyone like a referee who already knew the game was ugly. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded and sat in the chair closest to the door. Not as a threat, just because I knew I might need to leave before anyone was done talking. Alyssa started first. "I don't understand how you could do this," she said, voice shaking. "You walked out on our anniversary in front of my friends and my family. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I looked at her. Yes, I understand humiliation pretty well after that dinner. She flinched, then hardened. "It was a joke." Marissa jumped in. "You don't walk out on someone you plan to marry." The room went quiet for half a second. I almost laughed at the timing. Jenna leaned forward. "Maybe she joked because you never made her feel chosen. No offense, Michael, but Alyssa has been patient." No offense has always been one of those phrases people use right before they say exactly what they mean. I looked at Jenna. "Patient with what?" "With being strung along," she said. "With you acting like commitment is a spreadsheet." Alyssa wiped her face. "I just wanted to feel like you were excited about me. And the way to do that was to call me a safe choice in front of everyone." "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Denise sat down slowly. "Michael, did you ever actually intend to marry my daughter?" There it was. The question underneath every joke, every side eye, every family comment. I didn't answer right away. I reached into the folder and pulled out the first printed confirmation. "This," I said, placing it on the coffee table, "is the reservation for the private room I booked for the 18th. Alyssa went still. I placed the second page down. "This is the photographer deposit for 30 minutes after dinner." Jenna's face changed. I placed down the email from the jeweler. "This is the ring setting I paused yesterday. It was based on the oval style Alyssa saved a few years ago and told me she loved before all of this became a scoreboard." Denise picked up the reservation with both hands. Her eyes moved over the page, then to Alyssa. Marissa uncrossed her arms. Alyssa whispered, "Michael." I kept my voice even because if I let it rise, everyone would focus on my tone instead of the truth. "I wasn't stalling," I said. "I was planning. Quietly. Because I thought the proposal was supposed to be about us." Alyssa started crying harder. "I didn't know." "You weren't supposed to know the details," I said. "But you were supposed to know me." No one spoke. Then Jenna, because apparently silence made her uncomfortable, said, "Okay, but she didn't know that. You can't blame her for feeling neglected." Brooke looked at her. "Jenna, stop." It was the first thing Brooke had said since I walked in. Jenna snapped, "What?" I pulled out my phone. "She's right that Alyssa didn't know the proposal details," I said. "But she knew what she was saying about me." Alyssa's eyes locked on my phone. "Michael," she said quickly, "those were private." That told everyone in the room exactly what I was about to show. I didn't pass the phone around like a trophy. I opened the screenshots and placed the phone on the coffee table where Denise and Marissa could see. The first message was Alyssa calling me too comfortable. The next was the one about me hoping she'd settle for something tiny. Then I scrolled to the one I knew mattered most. "Alyssa, if it's not worth posting, I might say no just so he finally understands effort." Denise's hand went to her mouth. Marissa looked at Alyssa like she had never seen her before. Jenna stopped moving. Alyssa lunged forward slightly, not enough to grab the phone, but enough that Denise said, "Alyssa." Alyssa sat back. I was venting. People vent. Brooke's voice was quiet. It didn't feel like venting anymore. Alyssa turned on her. "You sent him those?" Brooke swallowed. "After dinner, yes." "How could you?" Brooke looked sad, not defensive. "Because you were letting everyone think he was the bad guy." Alyssa shook her head. "They were jokes. Private jokes." I was frustrated. I looked at her. "You talked about saying no to my proposal in front of people if the ring wasn't worth posting. I wouldn't have actually done it. How was I supposed to know that?" She had no answer. I said, "I wasn't embarrassed because you wanted more. I was embarrassed because I realized I was planning a future with someone who used me as a punchline." The room went completely silent. That was the only dramatic sentence I allowed myself. I didn't need more. Denise set the reservation paper down carefully. "Alyssa, is there anything else you didn't tell us?" Alyssa wiped her face. "Mom, This isn't fair. He's making me look. Answer the question, Denise said. Her voice changed. It wasn't cruel. It was tired. Did you tell us he was helping you with those payments you were stressed about? Alyssa looked at me, then away. Marissa frowned. What payments? I opened the folder again. I didn't bring this to embarrass her. But since I was called cheap at a table full of people, I'm not going to pretend this part doesn't matter. I placed the list on the table. Car repair half. Dog emergency visit. Flight reimbursement. Furniture deposit. Beside each one, I had the date, the amount, and whether she had paid it back. Some were partial. Some were nothing. Denise's face fell. Marissa said, Alyssa? Alyssa's voice got sharper. That's not the point. I said, it became the point when you called me cheap. Her eyes filled again. I never asked you to do those things so you could throw them in my face. I'm not throwing them in your face. I'm refusing to let you hide them while you tell people I don't show up for you. Jenna stared at her lap. Nate wasn't there, but I later heard Jenna had told him everything that night. For once, I was grateful he wasn't in the room making jokes. Alyssa looked at me and finally said the closest thing to an apology I had heard. I'm sorry you saw those messages. That was when I knew we were done. Not because she didn't use the perfect words. People mess up apologies all the time. But because even then, her regret was pointed at being exposed, not at what she had done. I said, Alyssa, do you understand why that doesn't help? She started crying harder. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I was embarrassed. Everyone keeps getting engaged, and I felt like I was the only one waiting. You never told me anything. You never made me feel like there was a plan. I told you I saw a future with you. That's vague. I showed up for you. I wanted romance. Then you could have told me that without turning me into a warning label for your friends. She covered her face. Marissa stood and walked into the kitchen. I heard cabinets open and close even though nobody needed anything. Denise just sat there staring at the papers on the table. I felt sad then. Not victorious. Not powerful. Sad. Because there was a version of this conversation we could have had months earlier, privately, before resentment became entertainment. Alyssa could have said, I'm scared you're never going to propose. I could have said, I'm planning something, but I need you to trust me. Maybe we would have argued. Maybe we would have learned something. But she didn't choose that. She chose an audience. Alyssa reached for my hand. I let her touch it for a second, then pulled back gently. Please don't do this, she said. We can fix it. I was stupid. I got caught up in what everyone else had. I believe that part. I really did. But getting caught up didn't explain all of it. It didn't explain letting people insult me. It didn't explain laughing when I was clearly uncomfortable. It didn't explain planning to judge my proposal like content. I said, I loved you, but I'm not marrying someone who needed an audience before she could respect me. She shook her head. So that's it. You're just done. Yes. The word felt heavy and clean at the same time. Denise looked up. Michael. I turned to her, expecting one last defense. Instead, she said, I owe you an apology. I believed what I was told. Alyssa made a small wounded sound, but Denise didn't take it back. Marissa came back from the kitchen with her arms wrapped around herself. I owe you one too, she said, not looking directly at me at first. Then she forced herself to. I only had the version she gave us. I shouldn't have talked to you the way I did. I nodded. Thank you. Jenna said nothing. Brooke looked like she wanted to disappear. I stood, gathered my folder, and put my phone in my pocket. Alyssa stood too. Can we talk alone? Please. Just 5 minutes. I wanted to say yes because the habit of caring about her was still there. It doesn't vanish just because respect does. But I knew what would happen. She would cry. I would soften. She would turn the conversation into how abandoned she felt, and somehow I would walk out carrying half the blame again. So I said, not tonight. Michael. Not tonight, I repeated. Then I left Denise's house the same way I had left the restaurant. Quietly, without slamming anything. The aftermath was messy, but not explosive. I didn't post the screenshots. I didn't send them around. I didn't call Alyssa names. I told her, clearly, over text the next day, that the relationship was over and that we needed to arrange a time for her to pick up her things from my place. Her first reply was, Alyssa, after everything, you're really ending us over messages? I typed back, me. I'm ending it over the disrespect the messages showed. She didn't answer for 3 hours. Then, Alyssa, I said I was sorry. Me, you said you were sorry I saw them. After that, the text got longer. Hers, not mine. She wrote about feeling pressured by everyone else, about watching friends get engaged and feeling like she was falling behind, about how she did love me and how she didn't know how to ask for reassurance without sounding needy. I read all of it. I didn't ignore her pain, but I also didn't let it erase mine. I replied, "Me, I believe you felt insecure. I don't believe insecurity gave you the right to humiliate me or plan to humiliate me more." That was the last serious relationship conversation we had. She came by that weekend with Denise to pick up her things. I think Denise came to keep it civil, and I was grateful for that. Alyssa cried when Benny's spare leash came off the hook by my door. I almost cried too, because Benny didn't understand any of this. He just looked around for treats and wagged his tail like he expected me to come with them. Alyssa picked up one of the mugs from my cabinet, the blue one with a crooked handle. "I bought this," she said. "You can take it." She held it for a second, then put it back. "No, keep it." That was the closest we got to tenderness. Before she left, she said, "I really did think you were never going to ask." I said, "And I really was going to." She nodded like that hurt more than anything else. Then she left. People drifted in afterward with apologies, some better than others. Nate texted me 2 days later. "Nate, I didn't know the whole story. I'm sorry for piling on. It was short. It was awkward. It was enough." Marissa sent a longer message. "Marissa, I shouldn't have said what I said. I thought I was protecting my sister, but I helped make things worse. I'm sorry." I thanked her. Brooke called once. I didn't pick up, but I texted her later. "Me, I appreciate what you did. I need some distance from everyone connected to this for a while." "Brooke, I understand. Again, I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner." Jenna never apologized. That didn't surprise me. From what I heard, her friendship with Alyssa got strained after the meeting. Not because Jenna suddenly became reflective, but because Alyssa blamed her for encouraging the jokes, and Jenna blamed Alyssa for making everyone look bad. It sounded exhausting, and I was relieved not to be in it. Alyssa's victim story fell apart, at least with the people who had seen the evidence. I don't know what she told people outside that room. I stopped caring after a while. Not completely, but enough. The jeweler ended up offering to keep the stone on hold for a limited time in case I wanted it reset into something else later. I told him no, not because the ring was cursed or anything dramatic like that. It just belonged to a future that wasn't happening. The money I lost bothered me for about a week. The reservation deposit, the photographer retainer, the jeweler's fee. It wasn't nothing. I could have used that money for plenty of other things. But every time I started feeling sick about it, I remembered the message. If it's not worth posting, I might say no just so he finally understands effort. Then the loss felt different. It was cheaper than a marriage where my dignity depended on her mood. I have spent a lot of time thinking about what I should have done sooner. I should have stopped laughing off the little comments. I should have asked harder questions when her family started treating me like a man wasting their daughter's life. I should have told Alyssa, plainly, that the jokes were changing how safe I felt with her. That's on me. Avoiding confrontation can look like patience from the outside. Sometimes it's just fear in a nicer shirt. But I don't regret leaving the dinner. I don't regret canceling the proposal. And I don't regret showing the truth when Alyssa tried to make my silence look like guilt. Walking away calmly doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It just means I finally understood that I didn't need to argue for a seat at a table where my own girlfriend had served me up as entertainment. So now I'm asking because some people say I should have given Alyssa a private chance to explain before canceling everything. But after hearing her humiliate me in public, then seeing that she had already planned to judge my proposal like content for her friends, I don't know what there was left to save. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.